Hemal bhai, you are the host now. If Hemal bhai, if you can allow me to share screen. The Hemal Shah. But can we connect to Hemal bhai on offline? I don't know if he is.
Yeah. What happened?
Okay, Hemal bhai, you are the host by default. I don't know, maybe if that's not the choice, but you'll have to either make me the host or allow me to share screen.
Oh,
The baton has passed on to you and you are now the host.
okay.
Refund also, so that
No. My only request is all those who have come with an excitement that ये session में आके refund मिलेगा. Honestly, refund नहीं मिलेगा, refund का तरीका मिलेगा. So don't get so excited that आज का session 5 बजे खत्म होके 5:30 बजे account में पैसे आ जाएंगे. Don't consider that. So I see our President Kamlesh bhai also joining. Sir, good afternoon. So let me quickly, Kamlesh bhai, I think your audio is getting connected, but chalo, let me quickly share the screen and we can move ahead. All right. Yes. A quick confirmation on the chat. You are able to see the screen. You are able to hear me loud and clear.
yes.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. All right. So we're going to go a little basic, clearing the entire doubt. And for many, it may be a simple thing repeated, but I think the reason is very simple, that once you understand this basic aspect, then it is simpler, or life is easier then, because then you have an option and choice what to do. All right. So let's go quickly and understand the nitty-gritties and then probably look at even how the refund process works. So very basics, as far as export is concerned, we all have our general definition of export. If I ask somebody in the audience, somebody will say goods going out of the country. Somebody says goods going, payment coming. Somebody will say goods going. Can't hear anything. You can't hear anything. 1 second. KGN, you can't hear anything. Sandeep bhai, am I audible? Sashi ji?
Yes, you're audible. Yes.
KGN, why don't you disconnect your speaker, or you can come back, reconnect yourself. Just check. KGN, I think the audio end is an issue at your end. You'll have to select the audio out your end. So everybody has an understanding on what is export. But since we are talking about GST, we also want to understand what GST defines. So GST defines, as we say, GST is goods and service tax. So everything, whenever we talk about it, is dual. Friends, my request is, many of you are sitting together at the same time. Mute yourself. Guys, please mute yourself when you join in. Thank you. And remain muted. Otherwise, we will not be able to have a real good conversation. So export could be defined in a different manner from what you perceive it. But from a GST perspective, we have to understand what GST likes it. Okay. KGN, you are not able to hear me still. I think you'll have to reconnect. So maybe you can disconnect and come back again if you're not able to listen. Okay. So 1 second. This is only for KG, and I think he is not able to listen. Sandeep bhai, somebody can just connect with Mr. KGN and see if he has any challenge on technically. So whenever we talk about GST, we also always have to understand that things will go parallelly. Goods and service tax or goods and services will move together. Most of you, or rather all of you, are focusing on goods. Maybe none of you are talking about services, but we have to understand the entire concept. So you may consider goods meaning goods going out of the country. Somebody may say goods going country, but payment should come. Goods can just go to anybody outside India. All of these can be understood in various things. But what does GST define? GST very simply says, and it is technically taken a definition from the Customs Act also. It says export means, or export of goods means taking goods out of India to a place outside India. Now, as far as definition of export of goods is concerned, and this is, I'm going to keep this to your understanding principally, that GST defines export of goods as physical movement of the goods. Please understand, it doesn't talk about payment here. It will talk somewhere, but not here. It doesn't talk about whether the money should come into India or not, whether the money should come in foreign currency or not, whether it should be rupees or not. Hence, supplying goods to Nepal, and most likely it will be in INR, is also considered as export of goods as far as GST is concerned. Why? Because it means goods are going out of India to a place outside India. Another thing very important, which is categorically same as in other definitions. We are saying export of goods where goods are taking out of India to a place outside India, which means categorically that Anuj, if you tomorrow buy goods from China and directly sell to South Africa, it is nothing to do with export of goods. Why? Because goods are not going out of India to a place outside India. So be very clear, the words are having, each of them having its own meaning, and it is important to confirm that. Export of services has a little larger definition, where the supplier should be located in India, the recipient should be outside India, the place of service should be outside India, and there's an entire section 13 on place of service rules. The payment should be in foreign currency. Now understand, in this service, the definition itself says the payment should be in foreign currency or Indian rupees as permitted by RBI, meaning without payment, no export of service. And lastly, the service recipient and the service supplier should not be a related party or merely an establishment of distinct persons. I have highlighted the and in this last one. And what do I mean by that? And Anuj, is all 5 conditions have to be fulfilled. This is not a test match ke 3 out of 5 match jeet gaye to match jeet jaye. For export of service, all of these 5 conditions have to be fulfilled. All right. Similarly, on a reverse side of this definition is the import aspect, where import of goods means again bringing goods into India from a place outside India. The goods should come into India, and when I say into India, I categorically mean when the goods cross the custom frontiers. Import of services means where the supplier is outside India, recipient is India, and the place of service is India as per the place of service rules. In both this scenario, place of service or meaning of where the service has terminated or goods have been delivered has to be understood. So for place of supply, when the goods are considered, the very clear definition is there, and we refer to section 11 for this, which very clearly says, by definition, by law, in case of import, the place of supply, where is the good supplied? That's the question. In that scenario, in case of import, it will be the location of the importer. So if Yogesh ji is based out of Gujarat, it is Gujarat. If it is Kamlesh bhai who is based out of Mumbai, it is Mumbai. Where is, in case of export, the exported goods means where the place of supply is. It is where it is goods outside India, it is very clear that the place of supply is considered as outside India. So for goods, the place of supply rules are very clear. Export means outside India, imports means in India. For services, there is a challenge, and there is a section 13 which specifically deals with it, where there are some specific services. Depending upon their location, the location of service decides. Otherwise, it is the recipient of the service where the location is. So for Mr. Yogesh, if the service is being offered and it doesn't come under those specific services, and he is offering services to a foreign customer, that means the foreign customer is the recipient of service. His location will be certified, which means by definition, where the place of supply had to be outside India and the location of the supplier is out, location of the recipient is outside India, it will qualify export of service. There are two other definitions, though not directly related to each one of you on a regular basis, but we still want to do it. Dr. Mohiddin, I'll request you to mute yourself, sir. Thank you. So there's a definition of SEs. There's a definition of, sorry, you'll have to mute, sorry. Okay, don't unmute, keep it muted. SEZ is the definition has been taken from the SEZ Act. It is the same meaning as per the SEZ Act, and it will cover the free trade zones as well. Now, many of you might be supplying goods to an SEZ, or maybe you are an SEZ unit yourself, or have a relationship with an SEZ unit. In that case, that will be exactly as per the definition of SEZ. Now, why are we looking at these definitions? We are looking at this definition because GST has created a concept called as zero rated supply. So principally, when GST has been introduced, and now by now I'm sure everyone is aware that every supply which has a tax, which has to do with goods, and I'm going to keep it to goods because most of you deal with goods, there is GST applicable, right? Everybody who sells, most likely the GST is applicable. We're not going for the exempted or items which are not under GST like petrol or diesel or something, electricity and all. We're talking about normal goods, especially pharmaceutical goods. Every product most likely has a GST. Then what is zero rated supply? So first and foremost, pehla myth, the first wrongdoing which people understand. They say export does not have GST. That's a wrong thing. There is nothing like that. Export pe bhi GST hai. Second, I'm an exporter and somebody says the rate is zero. Well, friends, the rate is not zero. There's a difference between a zero rate, or what we call it as nil rate, and a zero rated supply. Let me clarify. Of course, we are going to have a GST council meeting very soon next week. Shayad rates may change, but apparently as of today, we have 5 macro rates: 28%, 18%, 12%, 5%, and nil rate of GST. NIL, nil rate of GST. Abhi obviously KGN, nil rate will be written as zero only when you write it in an invoice, right? But that is not zero rated supply. There's a difference. I'll give an example. Milk is a nil rate supply. Wheat flour or atta, maida is a zero rated, it's a nil rated supply. Exercise notebooks, writing books, printed books, they are nil rated supply, meaning on that product, the GST rate is nil. Then what is zero rated supply? Please understand, zero rated supply is the transaction, not the product or the rate. My request is to keep yourself muted, guys. Thank you. So zero rated supply is a transaction. It is not a rate per se on the product. So every product, you might be exporting a product, you might be selling a product which is 28%. You might be selling a product which is 5%. You might be selling textile. You might be selling pharma. You might be selling medical equipments. Any product can be a zero rated supply because it's a transaction. Now, what are those transactions? Well, the definition under section 16 is very clear that zero rated supply are supplies for goods and services both, namely export of goods and services. Now, we already know what is the definition of export of goods. So for our purpose, goods going out of the country It is export of goods. It does not say whether Sandeep Bhai is exporting injectables at 12% or Mr. Singh is exporting pharma at 5%. It does not matter what is the rate of your product. Your transaction, Mr. Singh, because you are selling the goods to Singapore, where Mr. Sandeep is selling goods to USA, by mere definition of the transaction that the goods are going out of the country, it is export of goods, and export of goods under GST is called as zero rated supply. Anuj, you might have a order from an SEZ unit. A SEZ based in Bangalore asks you for a unit, or maybe an SEZ developer asks you to give some medicines, right? That is also considered as a zero rated supply. So supply, which is export of goods, or supply to an SEZ unit or an SEZ developer, both of them, or all three categories, a physical export of goods, supply to SEZ unit or an SEZ developer, it is called zero rated supply. It is not product centric. It is not rate centric. It is not the rate. It is the transaction which you have to understand. So that categorically means that if Yogesh ji, you are supplying goods to a company in Maharashtra and you are based in Maharashtra, it is called intra-state supply. If you are based in Maharashtra and you are selling the goods to Anuj, let's say in Delhi, it is interstate supply. And when you are selling goods to your foreign buyer in South Africa, it is a zero rated supply. So these are the three kinds of supply. I have not gone into what is the rate of GST, whatever be your product. Now, we are aware that when you do intrastate, and if it is 18% GST, you charge 9 plus 9. If it is outside in Delhi, you will charge 18%. Now, what will you do when you do South Africa? That is the question which is answered in zero rated supply. So once I know that Yogesh ji, you are doing a zero rated supply, I agree, yes, zero rated supply. Product is under 18%. By the way, how do I know it is 18% or it is 12%? Well, HSN code and GST rate schedule. So GST rate schedule and HSN code is common for the product. What you do, whether you sell intrastate, interstate, or you do export, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right. Now, because Yogesh ji is selling an export transaction and I'm telling him, Yogesh ji, your product, your transaction is a zero rated supply. What do I do? Well, you have an option that Yogesh ji, you can make zero rated supply and claim refund of the GST in following two manners. So what is the peculiarity? Typically, if you ask difference between interstate and intrastate, somebody say, no, dono same hi hai. Only thing is, the difference is here I charge 9 plus 9. There I charge 18, one way. That's it. Here I charge CGST and the state GST. Here I charge IGST. That is the difference. What is the difference here? First of all, export is outside the country, so it will always be IGST. But the point is, because it is zero rated supply and because the cardinal principle of export is you should be exporting goods and not taxes, the GST which you pay or you charge or you are supposed to pay gets refunded to you. So the unique thing why I am calling this transaction which I am exporting as zero rated supply, because zero rated supply gives me an option to claim refund. Now, how do I claim it and what do I claim refund of? So we have two options available. Number one, see, a standard practice of product sale is that you have to charge GST and you have to pay GST and collect GST. Now, Jainesh Bhai, if he is going to charge it to me and I'm going to pay him 118 rupees, he has no problem, right? Because he's collecting from me and he's going to pay that 18 to the government. But if I am sitting in US and if he tells me to pay GST, I'm going to say, hello, hang on. I'm not going to charge you. I'm not going to pay you your GST. There's nothing to do with me. Correct? So what do we do? What does he do? First and foremost, Jainesh Bhai, you have two options. First, principle you have to understand. And Mr. Patel, you do not have to charge GST to a foreign buyer because technically it will be refunded to you. So when it is refunded to you, then there's no question of cost, correct? It is not a part of cost. It's probably a cash flow, but it is going to be refunded to you at the end. You have two options. Since I'm based in USA, I'm your buyer in USA, I'm telling you, Mr. Patel, I am not going to pay you GST. And you are also aware that, yeah, somewhere I understand, yeah, why will I charge GST to my US buyer? Fantastic, correct. So then, Jainesh bhai, you will execute a bond or a letter of undertaking with your local GST jurisdiction office, telling them that I'm going to export certain goods and for which I am not going to, or allow me not to charge GST. So basically, it's kind of a permission which you're seeking from the GST authority that, listen, I am going to make some export transactions. And because it is an export transaction, it is a zero rated supply. Allow me not to charge GST. Janish bhai, are you going to be happy with that? I don't know. Yeah, he's saying he's happy. I know he's a contented person actually. He doesn't want any refunds. And honestly, if all of the exporters were like Janish bhai, then probably this session would have not happened. Janish bhai, you will not charge GST to me. But you know what? You bought some goods from Mr. Dungar Singh and he charged you GST because for him it was a local sale. KG and send goods to you, or you bought goods from Mr. Jindal. These goods were domestic procured, right? So they have charged you GST. So Jainesh bhai, your sale, on your sale side, you are not charging GST, but on your purchase side, you are paying GST. What about that cost? How will you recover? So the refund mechanism which we are mentioning under zero rated supply allows you that if you export under LUT or a letter of undertaking and a bond, you can apply for refund of your input credit. Imagine Mr. Jainesh Patel having just one single transaction. He is buying goods worth, let's say, 10,000 rupees from Mr. Jindal, selling it at 12,000 rupees. I know Jainesh bhai itna profit nahi hoga, but just example. I mean, hypothetical. I see the smiles. Kapil saying that itna profit hai to mere ko bhi bata do. So 10,000 goods purchased by him. But when Kapil is going to bill it to Mr. Jainesh Patel, he is going to charge 10,000 plus, let's say, 5% GST. Now, Jainesh bhai is going to sell me at 12 in US as an export transaction under LUT without any tax. So 12,000 without any tax, fantastic. But Jainesh bhai, aapka wo jo GST gaya, uska kya? Well, that GST becomes your input credit. But sir, क्या है? बैंक से तो पैसा चला गया, credit का क्या करूं? And if this is the only transaction, let's say, which Mr. Patel is going to do, or this is the only method, every month I have a standard and this is the common order which he is going to do. Keep on doing. Every month, probably 5,000 rupees of ITC, input tax credit, will keep on getting accumulated in Mr. Patel's account. But bank se to paisa chala jayega to Mr. Jindal. Right? So we will discuss this as we move further, but the option which is available and why it is called zero rated, Mr. Patel, you will be given an option, or you have an option to apply for the refund of that purchase input credit for the export which we have done. Now, this may look very complicated. This may look very tedious. There is a process for it also. And it's a refund which you have to apply. Okay, Jainesh bhai has to apply for refund. I mean, honestly, we don't want you to apply. Government doesn't want you to apply. Nobody likes to apply for. Nobody would likes to give refund. But if you apply, Jainesh bhai, the department will give you a refund. But Mr. Dungar Singh says, sir, ये ऐसा application वाला काम हमको नहीं करना है. हमको तो automatic चाहिए. I mean, I'm exporting, right? And that is visible. I have filed shipping bill. I have done this. So why not? I should get it straight away. So, well, Mr. Singh, we will give you that automatic option as well. So what you do is, like Jainesh bhai, you also buy from Mr. Kapil, and Kapil again sells you at same 10,000. He is very standard pricing. He gives sabko same price, no discount. So he also gave you a 10,000 rupees plus 5% GST. Now you are selling to me, foreign buyer based in US. What do? For your purpose, for your taxation purpose, you will raise an invoice with GST. So you pay the tax. Now, please be very clear. This is one of the most common misunderstanding which people have. Mr. Dungar Singh is selling me goods at 12,000. So he has to raise an invoice at 12,000 at the rate of 5% GST. So 12 5s are 60. He has to pay 600 rupees as GST. 12,600 is his liability. I mean, the invoice value. 600 is his liability, not 500. 500 is already paid to Kapil. 10,500 rupees bhar chuke hai. In fact, 500 will become his credit as input credit. 600 will be his liability. All right. Now, if your 600 is your liability, Mr. Singh, Kapil से माल लिया है, फिर किसी CHA की सर्विस भी ली होगी, inspection करवाया होगा, packing लिया होगा, all of that would add into your input credit, which probably would have become 600 or 625 also. I don't know. What is the option you have? You have a very straightforward option. That Mr. Dungar Singh, you have raised an invoice of 12,000. Guys, my request is all of you have to be on mute except me. Otherwise, we will be having very difficult situation that we will not be able to understand anything. Anybody who is not on mute, my request is please be on mute. Thank you. So Mr. Dungar Singh, you will make an invoice of 12,000 plus 5% GST. 600 is your liability. Now listen to this carefully. You will pay 600. Okay. You will have to pay 600. To make payment of your 600, you have three options. You will pay 600. Obviously, when you file your return, end of the next month, 22 तारीख को, you will pay 600 fully cash. Okay. Second option है, you pay 600 with the input credit which you have accumulated. आपके पास 500 रुपए कपिल की है. Maybe another you have 50 rupees of somebody. तो और शायद और भी कुछ purchase कर लिया होगा ये month में. You have more input credit. Pay entire 600 from your input credit. No problem. How you pay does not concern. So first, full cash payment of 600. Second, full input credit payment of 600. And the third option is kuch cash, kuch credit. Kapil's 500 is already there. 600 was your liability. Pay 100 more. Ultimately, you will have to pay that liability. Now, when you pay that liability, which liability? Liability on your sale value. Don't consider the purchase value. Purchase is over. Purchase has nothing to do with you. Okay, because purchase is actually Kapil's sale. So when you have already paid the 600 and it is an export transaction, the system will automatically verify your data. And just like how we get our duty drawbacks from the customs, you will be refunded 600 rupees. That is the GST on your sale amount as your GST refund. So you paid 600, you got refund of 600. Zero rated supply. All right. So these are the two things. We will discuss this in more detail, but these are the two options which is there. Okay. Now, if I have to select Kapil out of these two, one or two, it categorically clearly means that for the first option, I need to have Jainesh Bhai has to offer a LUT or a bond to the customs, to the GST authorities, correct? Unless he has given that, that option is not available. Okay. So what do? Every one of us can offer a LUT or a bond. Now, before that, just a quick glimpse of how the route is. We'll discuss this as we go ahead. So you had an LUT or a bond option available from the time when GST was rolled out. Earlier, there was a bond and only export house or a status holder were eligible for it. However, from 2017, we have done away with that. We have said any or all registered exporter who intend to supply goods for export can apply for a letter of undertaking. In fact, the LUT now is an automated process. So when Jayesh Bhai has to apply for an LUT, that LUT, he may not have to even wait for anybody. He has to just go online, apply the LUT, the system will generate a application reference number. My request is again, please mute yourself. Somebody's audio is disturbing us. 47 people. Who is it? Okay. Thank you. Now, the moment Janish Bhai will upload the data, system will automatically give you an ARN number, which is automatic acceptance of LUT. No requirement of somebody approving it, giving you something. कोई certificate कुछ भी नहीं आएगा. But what is critical, you have to understand that every LUT which you issued, understand this. A LUT, a letter of undertaking. LUT is letter of undertaking. You don't need any bond, no stamp paper, nothing. A letter of undertaking, which is a request which Janish Bhai will do it to the GST authority. Janish Bhai, your LUT is valid for an entire financial year. I repeat, it is valid for an entire financial year, not a year. Which means if you had an LUT issued in month of February, it expired on 31st of March. For this financial year, that is financial year 22-23, you will have to apply for a fresh LUT. The process is simple as it can see. Log into your GST platform or a GST portal. There's an option called Furnish Your LUT. Click on it. A pre-drafted automatic Anuj auto-filled form is available. Only what you have to fill in up is select the financial year. If you already had an LUT, attach that LUT, previous LUT. Give details of two witnesses. The witness can be your another partner, proprietor, director, or your office employees, anybody. And that's it, submit. The moment you submit, instantaneously you will receive an acknowledgement. That's it. Pandurang ji, aisa hai. It is in fact sometimes whenever I do this trading, the amount of time I take to explain, usse आधे time में LUT issue हो जाती. It is that quick. All those who have it, please don't apply another one. KGN, LUT once issued is valid for entire year. It is not a shipment wise. It is valid for an entire year, financial year. So if you have an LUT issued anytime from 1st of April, that's it. You have to use that number. So I'll put it like this. Assuming LUT is your first class ticket. Okay? So first class mein to ja hi sakte ho. You can even travel by second class, correct? But you already have a first class pass. So you don't have to worry about that not charging. Your choice. As far as a transaction is concerned, every single transaction you can decide whether you want to export under LUT method or under paid IGST method. Ye choice is available for every single transaction. There is no compulsion. Provided you have an LUT. So assuming Kapil doesn't have an LUT, so ye option hi nahi hai Kapil ke paas. Because Kapil, you need to have an LUT first. Once you have an LUT, acha, there is no compulsion. Kapil took LUT today, assuming that tomorrow he wants to do a shipment under LUT. But then after this session, he realized, no, sir, I will not do under LUT. I will go under paid IGST. Allowed. There is no restriction that because you have taken an LUT, you must compulsory export only under LUT, except some circumstances which we will discuss separately. But in a normal situation, even if I have an LUT, every single transaction, KGN, your last month's transaction, you had exported under LUT. April, you have done under LUT. Maybe for last 5 years, you are doing under LUT. Does not mean that your next transaction has to compulsory be under LUT. Or vice versa. Pandurang, every export is paid IGST. He's paying and taking refund, though he's having LUT. It is not compulsory that he has to do everything compulsory. Yes, I'm not encouraging or I'm not telling you that LUT karo, paid karo. Don't do mix and match of both. Decide something for your organization. Stick to that as a plan. But option is available for every single transaction. Every single invoice, you can decide whether you want to do under LUT or under a paid IGST option. It is applicable for every single invoice. Which invoice? Your sale invoice. Don't get confused with purchase. Purchase se koi lena dena nahi hai. Whether I buy from 3 suppliers, I buy from 3 manufacturers or 30 manufacturers, it is my sale invoice. I have only one, Anuj has only one export invoice. He has to decide for that. He's buying 3 suppliers say, and he's making 3 export transactions. He can decide for all 3 कि 2 LUT में जाएगा, 1 paid में जाएगा. Choice उसके ऊपर. He can decide for every single transaction, right? So you all have to have an LUT. All those who do not have, either request your CA or person who handling your GST platform or portal. If your accounts team is here, ask them to at least get an LUT. I always feel having an LUT is no worries, even if you're not doing under LUT and you're doing under paid IGST. Okay. Again, last point is, again, before I go to the next one, is in this, when you apply for LUT, do remember on the drop down to select the financial year as 22-23. Don't make a mistake here. यहाँ पे drop down में financial year 22-23. We are already in 22-23. Don't make a mistake here. So now I have an LUT. I am prepared, but there's one condition. Janish bhai, you have one condition to follow under LUT, because you're giving an undertaking. You are giving an undertaking that on this invoice, I will not charge GST because this is export. So what is the undertaking? What is the condition? That from your date of export invoice or from your date of invoice, export invoice means your invoice. Janish bhai, your invoice or not your purchase invoice. From your invoice, which is your invoice to me in America, the export should happen within 90 days. Okay. If it is services, it has to happen within 1 year. So this is the only condition. The logic is basically the government doesn't want that Janish bhai actually is wanting to do some domestic sale, but defer the tax for 3 months by saying export tha and then say, oh, sorry sir, export nahi abhi domestic hai. Not allowed. Okay. So deferment of tax is not the idea. If you're doing genuinely export. Now, why this is also given? Maybe you miss a vessel. Maybe there's a connecting problem. Maybe you are consolidating it. तो आपने invoice बना के दे दिया, whatever be your reason, 90 days, that is 3 months, is good enough from the date of invoice that you can export. Sometimes, and we have seen this in last 2 years, connecting vessel and vessel, getting a slot on the vessel is sometimes challenging. अगर ऐसा कुछ भी होता है, still 3 months are good enough. In fact, we have checked it out. Even if you're based out of south of India, you're based in Chennai or maybe in south, and you're doing an export to Nepal by road, okay, still with the congestion at Nepal border, with the congestion at Bangladesh border, if it is by land, it will still not take 3 months for you to export, because maximum what it will take is about 60 days, not more than that. Because 15 to 20 days ka congestion land port pe hota hai, another 15-20 days of local transit, still you will be able to complete the transaction within 90 days, which is 3 months period. All right. So 3 months ke andar you have to export. I'm going to give this option to you, but I don't want you to think about it right now. There is an amendment introduced. This is important because this will help you decide in future. So Finance Act 2021, meaning budget of 2021, last year, not this budget, before this budget, last year, when the finance bill was presented, there was this one amendment proposed in the finance bill. I'm using the word proposed. It is not effective yet. And that proposal was that in the section 16 of the IGST, where we said an exporter as an option, Kapil as an option, either LUT or paid. ये और word है ना, वो delete कर दिया, and they broke up that rule and said section 16.3 is LUT and 16.4 is paid, and paid is only allowed to a specific list of products or specific category of registered persons, which will be notified by the GST. What does this mean? That today, what Kapil, you have an option of either of this will become compulsory LUT. ये finance bill, that is February 1st, 2021 को announce किया गया. However, this is not yet notified. हमको ये था कि February में नहीं तो दिसंबर तक होगा, दिसंबर नहीं तो फरवरी 22 में होगा, बट आज भी नोटिफाइड नहीं है. Okay, why I am throwing this light to you is that tomorrow if it gets notified, then understand we will have compulsory to do LUT only, unless that special category which is allowed to do paid IGST says pharmaceutical or says, you know, exporters under so and so category, or it says something which you qualify. But if you don't qualify, then you will come to compulsory go under LUT. ये एक option ध्यान में रखना. ये just it's a more of a knowledge information that I'm sounding it to you that sometimes it becomes compulsory. आज के दिन में अभी भी it is both option available because the law is not yet notified. Okay, the provision of that act is not notified. It is under section 108 to 123 of the act. It is not yet notified. The clause 123 is not yet notified of the Finance Act 21. Okay, chalo. So what is notified is not there. Then we have two options of refunds. We have the LUT option and we have the paid IGST. Janish Bhai was very happy with says, sir, I will not charge GST. I am happy with it. But I don't know how come he can be happy with his purchase being at least 5% to 18% or maybe even 28% costly. Because he has to pay to Kapil, he has to pay to KGN on his purchase 5, 12, 18%, whereas he's not going to get it back. Right? Because he's not supposed to charge. So please understand this concept categorically. First and foremost, a basic thumb rule for all the GST, I want to tell you. GST is a rule on sale. Okay, it's a tax on sale. So let person who is selling mind his business. Okay, which means if Mr. Jainish is buying locally from Kapil, it is Kapil's duty to decide on tax, Kapil's obligation to charge, and Kapil will charge whether it is CGST, SGST, or whether it is IGST, whatever be it, whether it is 5, 12, 18, and you have no choice but to pay. Simple. You are a purchaser, you are buyer. You are a buyer for a domestic goods. He will charge you, you will have to pay. Questions not entertained. Simple. It is his obligation. Now, what happens because of his obligation? Your cost gets increased. First rule of law under GST is, if you are buying something where you are paying GST, which is for furtherance of your business. Okay, and go back to GST law if you have any time. Google kar lena, what is furtherance of business? Aapke business mein, what is included in your business, which is part of your business? If that is what you're buying, then that input credit, that GST which you have paid for purchase will become your ITC. When Kapil is selling goods to Mr. Jainish, he is going to charge GST. Jainish Bhai says, I am into business of pharmaceuticals. I am buying this. This is my furtherance of business. Mr. Jainish Patel, you can take input credit of the bill which Kapil is providing. But tomorrow you go on a holiday and you buy an air ticket, you book a hotel and stay there. Trust me, Janish bhai, I know, understand ke bhai, you know, business mein break bhi hona chahiye, holiday bhi acha hai. It is not furtherance of business. That input credit you can't take. So understand the difference, what we are talking about. So principally, if it is furtherance of business, it will come to you as input credit. So what it comes? It will come to your GST input credit ledger, where it will say whatever GST you have paid to Kapil. Now, please understand this little larger. Janish bhai, for you to sell me an export container worth of goods, you are not only going to buy products from Kapil, KGN and Kamlesh bhai, you are also going to take services of clearing forwarding agent. You're probably going to take services of a testing agent. You're going to buy maybe cartons from somebody else. Maybe you are also going to take services of bank, maybe a forward contractor or anybody in terms of financing. And last but not least, the courier to send documents, right? All of these is your purchases, because purchase under GST is of goods and services. ये सारे को आप पे करोगे with GST, correct? And all that GST which you pay is furtherance of business, right? And hence it will come as input credit. अभी ये input credit जमा तो हो गया, but I can't charge. Jainesh bhai can't charge because he is going under LUT. So his invoice of $12,000 or 12,000 equivalent rupees will be without GST. So what does he do? He can apply for refund under Rule 89.4. It is called GST refunds under Rule 89.4, where, Jainesh bhai, there is a formula given to you on basis of which you can apply for refund. What is the formula? I'll read out the formula. Don't get complicated. It is not a so tension nahi hai uspe. It's a very simple formula. Turnover of zero rated supply of goods. What is zero rated supply? Jainesh bhai, your export goods. Now again, please only and only look it from your export perspective. Jainesh bhai, don't look it from your purchase. Don't look who is supplying to you. You have to look from your side of the story. You are an exporter. You have made a zero rated supply. So look at from your side. What does Mr. Patel has exported? For him, what is zero rated supply of goods? What is your turnover of zero rated supply? $10,000, $12,000, whatever you have done that. Have you done services? No, maybe. What is adjusted total turnover? The total turnover of your company, which includes domestic turnover, which includes your export turnover, both. If you have, it is there. If you don't have, it is okay. You will have at least export turnover. You might have a domestic turnover. You might not have a domestic turnover. Multiplied by your net ITC. And the net ITC is defined as net ITC on input and input services. So whatever you have purchased, input and input services, what is not included? Janish bhai, if you have bought capital goods, say आपने testing equipment लाया, say as a merchant exporter, mainly you will get that. If you're a manufacturer, maybe you buy machines. But if you've got a testing equipment, if it is capital goods, that ITC you can't calculate for refund in this. Okay? इसको हम simple तरीके से समझते हैं, because I think this is formula, but formula, how can we do it? So first and foremost, good part is you can consider for an application of refund for any period. Okay? So imagine karo, Jainesh bhai has been continuously exporting goods, and I have taken example of April 20 to March 21. And his exports, please understand, his export sale value, not his purchase value, not his GST value, his sale value. The value of the goods is 3 crores. He has no services. He has some domestic supply. He's done 1 crore worth of domestic supply. Okay. 3 crore ka export sale without payment of GST. 1 crore domestic sale. Obviously, wo to domestic sale mein GST laga hoga, and he might have paid and charged also. And he has a net ITC of 5 lakh rupees. So if you put it in the formula, turnover of zero rated supply is 3 crores plus service is 0. Total adjusted turnover 4 crore kaise aaya? 3 plus 1. 3 crores export, 1 crore domestic. Total adjusted turnover. So 3 plus 1, 4 crores multiplied by 5 lakhs. Jainesh bhai, you will be entitled for a refund of 3,75,000 rupees based on the formula. I am not supposed to check, or there is no verification, or there is no requirement. It's a formula based. Basically, what we are doing here is, okay, the value wise, we are defining how much input credit you should get refund. I am not going into the nitty gritties of Jainesh bhai. Did you buy that packing material and did you use for export or did you use for domestic? कितना export में किया, कितना domestic में किया? ऐसा मेरे को कोई calculation, कोई measurement चाहिए नहीं. Example, you have a bank charges. Bank ने आपको annual fee charge किया है services का. Now there could be some bank charges related to export also. There could be some bank charges related to domestic transaction also. I don't want a split of it. आपका पूरा business का, you have paid some charge for on which you have paid GST. It is become part of your net input credit. We will put it in this formula. Let's example. I'm sure many of you are only into exports. Just hypothetically think it, so you will have no confusion. Imagine Kamlesh bhai is only into exports. So ये जो domestic का 1 crore figure है ना चला गया. So what would the formula look like? 3 crores plus 0 divided by 3 crores. तो लॉजिक सिंपल है ना. अगर पूरा एक्सपोर्ट है तो पूरा रिफंड, अगर 3 out of 4 that means 90% export है तो 90% refund, 50% export है तो 50% refund. I am not going into क्या उसमें से 50% यूज हुआ था कि 40% हुआ था या 60% हुआ था. No, the formula is very very categorically clear. Anuji, no, domestic supply not GST, not including GST. Obviously, turnover value. Anuji, it is a sale value, not GST. It is not 118, it is 100. Okay, so I hope that clarifies your day. Now, one problem which has come. So ideally, Janish bhai, you are eligible for 3,75,000 refund. You can apply for refund. ये अगर आपको चाहिए तो, and I'll come to why you will want it and why you don't want it. Of course, you will want it. Before we go on to that, there's one small correction which has amended, which has come. Many times I have seen many of the GST jurisdiction not considering this formula. Saying turnover of your zero rated any export goods की जो value है, that they are saying that it will be value will be as per your actual export or 1.5 times of your domestic supply or similar place goods, or whichever is less. What is this? This is saying that assuming Jainesh Bhai is selling one goods at 100 rupees in India and he is selling at 500 rupees in exports, Janish bhai, your figure will be capped at 150 rupees for the purpose of refund calculation. Okay. So refund calculation, it will be for the purpose of this. There was a confusion that if my 100 is calculated as 150, where my actually was 500, will my turnover be calculated as 600 or 250? The clarification has come. It will be calculated at 250, whatever you consider as your export formula. So imagine if that 1.5% wala rule kicks in, it is already there, meaning if your jurisdiction officer is insisting, then my previous example would change something like this. See, my domestic supply of the same goods is at 1 crore. My export turnover is 3 crores, but for the calculation, it will be considered at 150%. So 1 crore ka 1.5 crore hoga. So 1.5 crores plus 0 divided by 2.5 crores, that is 1 crore plus 1.5 crores, multiplied by 5 lakhs, I will get refund of 3 lakhs. So if you see the difference based on this calculation, I'm getting 3 lakhs. Based on my previous calculation, I was getting 3,75,000. Janish, by 75,000, your ITC will get remain in the credit ledger. You will not get refund of it. This is reason probably they feel that many times exporters are getting too large values for their export order. I mean, we can argue on it, but unfortunately, this is the rule. So cap of 150% or 1.5 times of your domestic transaction is there. I have practically seen that many GST jurisdiction officers, especially where you are only into exports. So let's assume Kamlesh Bhai says, my company doesn't do 1 rupee worth of domestic business. Koi sale hi nahi hai. That means there is no measurement, right? Then in that case, we've seen many times the GST jurisdiction officer not considering this 1.5, they take the same value because they don't have a comparison value. But if you have a domestic value, then they do it. There can always be an argument that the product quality, everything is different. You can't compare apple to apple. It is two different things. But unfortunately, because the rule already exists, we have very little say on that front. All right. How do you apply? So now, first of all, the question is, why would you apply? So let me tell you who should not apply the refund, or rather, actually speaking, who is not required to apply for refund at all. So if you go back and see, even if we consider this formula, 1.5 divided by 2.5 into so and so, correct? Now, if you see that if you typically have, now I'm going to go a little factually. You know, your net input credit is 5 lakh rupees. Agar 1 crore ka aapka domestic sale hai, then you also have to pay domestic GST, correct? So you will use your input credit there. You will have to consume your input credit there also, right? So practically, though in the calculation the refund is 3 lakhs, but 1 crore के ऊपर अगर आपको 5% भी GST तो 5 लाख तो चला गया, आपके पास बैलेंस है ही नहीं. You don't have any balance because you have already used it and you have already got refund through your domestic buyers where they have paid you. So the concept is very simple that first and foremost, if you are into business where you do domestic as well as exports and if the ratio is 50-50, तो आपको कोई refund के लिए जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. You keep on doing under LUT. Because you do under LUT, the input credit which you accumulate will get consumed in your domestic liability. I'll give an example for people who don't understand. You know, आपके पास FD में कभी आपने FD की है and you get interest, तो उस पे TDS कटता है, right? TDS कटा है FD के वजह से, but because आपने कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट किया शेयर्स मार्केट में, आपको प्रॉफिट आया जिसकी वजह से आपको टैक्स आया, तो वो TDS और टैक्स यूज हो जाता है. So the question of refund doesn't arise. Neither you pay tax, neither you get refund. Self goal. It gets, nullified to each other. Same way, when you're almost till about 50% of your value of sale, अगर आपका domestic sales भी है, you will have a liability to pay. So when you have a liability to pay and you have a purchase for export which is under GST, so wo purchase, because remember one thing, Anuj, the purchase which you do, which is for furtherance of business, the input credit is an input credit without any rang, roop, religion, race. इसका कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि domestic purchase तो domestic में, export है तो export में, service है तो service. No, it is a input credit. It is just a number. So if you have a domestic sale, then you can go ahead with it. Now the problem is, I think Rohit ji, your question and your point is exactly taken. What if I have more than 50%, 60%, 80%, 90%, or even 100% export, meaning I don't have any domestic sale. So the domestic sale nahi hai, that means you can't use that input credit. Then obviously you can go and apply for a refund. How long or how much can you apply for a refund? You can apply a refund on a monthly basis. Choice is yours. Or you can accumulate it. You can do, I've given in this example an annual refund. मैंने April से March लिया है. You can do 1 month, 2 month, 3 month. Choice is yours. Depending upon how much you feel your purchase and sale is. Whatever period you take. In fact, the rule now provides you can even do, you can cross over even the financial year. ऐसा नहीं कि financial year compulsory है. You can have a refund of January to June. कोई problem नहीं, allowed. Okay. The only condition in the refund is whichever year you start taking refund or whichever application, previous years or previous month, either you should have applied or it should be nil application, compulsory. Yani previous yani as old as 1st July 2017. So if you are applying for current period, let's say you are applying for May of 22 and you have never applied before, so from 1st July 2017 to April of 22, you'll have to file a nil application. I don't want refund. Only then it will allow you for May of 22. It will go in sequential order. You can't skip the month in between. If you say, no, sir, I want even for January, then apply from January to May, 1 month, 6 months, 1st January to 30th of May, 5 months ka ek sath apply karo refund, no problem. And the formula, you put all the data for 5 months. So whatever period you decide, that is what you'll have to apply for. How you can apply? It is an online application completely. You can go to your refund section in the platform, select export of goods without payment of tax. It is compulsory to upload certain set of documents. They are undertaking. There's a statement which has to be provided, export statement. It's an online matchmaking after you upload a annexure, which is statement 3, which is basically your export transaction along with your what is called as EGM, export general manifest number. EGM is the proof that your goods have actually been exported. Now, let me give you a practical challenge. Many of you are facing challenges, especially in sea, not in air, but in sea exports, where EGM is taking time. तो अगर आप मंथली रिफंड करना चाह रहे हो और आपने 31st को एक्सपोर्ट किया है and you are applying for refund on let's say 10th or 12th or even 20th, you might have saying your EGM is not available. Okay, so then what do you have to do? You have to follow up with your CHA, get that EGM and then only apply, or wait for another month, combine two together, and after that you file. An important statement which is now very critical is your inputs. So this is your input statement, which is called Annexure B. Ideally, now this is very simpler because we have that GSTR 2A and 2B, which is auto-populated. So अगर 2A 2B में आपका input credit होगा, then only you will be able to get it. But based on this Annexure B, where you are going to write your supplier's GSTN number, name of the supplier, invoice data, what is the product, how much is your input credit, whether it is eligible or not. Accordingly, what you will decide, this ITC, that is in my formula, the 5 lakh rupees. So 5 lakh rupiya net input credit मैंने निकाला था, is going to be put in this Annexure B statement, which is going to be verified. Now, please understand, what are you asking for refund? Janish bhai, you have not paid any GST. You have paid GST at the time of purchase, which has become your input credit. And what are you asking for refund? Refund of input credit. Correct? You are asking for refund of input credit. Why? Because this is a zero rated supply. So क्या मुझे check करना है? If I am the officer, what am I supposed to check? Two things. Number one, has Mr. Patel exported? So I will want to see all your shipment details. I don't need any documents anymore now. I need only shipping bill number, date, invoice details, EGM, and all of that. Okay. Where will this be stored? This will be stored in your GSTR1 sales in details. Correct. So when you file GSTR1, that statement or your GSTR1 of your month and that statement of export both should tally. GSTR1 में आपने बोला है मैंने 5 इनवॉइस किया और आप स्टेटमेंट में 10 इनवॉइस बता रहे हो. How is it going to match? Not possible, correct? So your GSTR1 and that statement. So once I have confirmed yes, you have exported, what will it help me to confirm? It will confirm the formula का पहला figure, turnover of zero rated supply. Once I know the sales figure which is confirmed, I will get to know the turnover. Obviously, you are only into exports. Let's assume so your total turnover is also confirmed because of GSTR1 that you have done the same. Then what I have to confirm? I have to confirm your input credit. So you are going to submit me this Annexure B, and I also have your 2A and your 3B where you have taken ITC to match that what you are claiming as 5 lakh rupees of your input credit, is it eligible or not? Based on this document, the GST jurisdiction. So Kapil, your GST is either central or state. Your GST jurisdiction will process your refund claim. Please understand, the refund of input credit is provided by GST authority and nobody else. Because your refund, भले export की वजह से है, पर refund क्या मांग रहे हो आप? Input credit का, जो चीज which is already become ITC, which is already become part of GST. Reason can be export, reason can be anything, but what is the refund? Input credit. Purchase के ऊपर की जो credit है, जो GST credit है, तो वो GST department ही देगा, GST officer ही देगा. Ideally, there is no manual requirement, obviously, but because it is through GST jurisdiction, they will process. As per law, 90% has to come within 7 days. Balance 10% has to come after their processing, and which will take about 60 days. Online tracking and tracing of the refund is possible and it is doable. So don't worry on how do you track it. It is all done online. I do understand because it is human intervention, though it is online, it is human intervention. Many times it becomes challenging. Many times it becomes that what Sandeep Bhai was saying, that many people are finding it challenging. People are finding it troublesome. There could be a question of whether an ITC which Kapil has taken, let's say Kapil has taken an ITC for some product. Let's say he's taken it for chair. And I am arguing, अरे यार ये chair तो furniture है, ये chair तो input credit नहीं आ सकती. He's like, boss, this is an office chair, यार. How can you not say office के लिए लिए, office में पड़ी है, it is used by the office. It is used by the director. It is right here. How can you deny me a input credit on that? So there can be an argument, but please understand the argument is on whether ITC is eligible or not. Refund ki argument nahi hai. There's a difference. You have exported. The value is clear. Argument is on how much ITC, because that will decide your formula calculation. Somebody wanted formula. Formula is available on 89.4. I will share it to you separately. Ye PPT bhi hum share kar denge, so don't worry. So, okay, one question, Leena ji, you have a question, is whether to do FOB or CIF. It's a big debate at this point of time. Because originally when GST was introduced in 2017, it was FOB value, but subsequently, it has been clear that it has to be transaction value. And there's a law under the GST which categorically says your invoice has to be transaction value. So as an exporter, when you are offering CIF, understand one thing, हम भले लिखते हैं, export में कमलेश जी लिखेंगे $100 FOB, $10 freight, $1 insurance. But आप जब भी दे रहे हो, वो तो आपको buyer को breakup चाहिए इसके लिए. But when you negotiate, what do you negotiate? 111 CIF. So what is the transaction value? And it may also be कि शायद आपने $10 भरा नहीं, आपने 11 भी भरा है freight या 9 भी भरा है. Nobody is asking you that. Insurance you might have paid 1 or paid less, does not matter. Why? Because you are offering consolidated 111 CIF. That is your transaction value, which means you should apply for transaction value, and your calculation should be on transaction value. We have cases where department has argued when you apply a transaction value कि नहीं हम तो FOB value पे देंगे. My argument has always been first and foremost, because they say shipping bill पे देखो FOB लिखा है. I have a very clear thing that shipping bill पे CIF value भी लिखा है. Please check. Okay. The transaction value is very clearly defined. Second, whether you put, I'm just giving you an example, whether you put 111 divided by 111, the answer will be same, or whether you put $100 of FOB divided by $100 total, answer is going to remain the same. The problem is what department sometimes does, many officers do, is for your export value, they will take FOB value, and for your total turnover, they will take CIF or CFR value. So your value reduces. I would not suggest to do that. So you should argue and probably take the matter, proper explanation should be given and take it up further. Amita, services I will take. So services, you have same for the paid, I mean for LUT. If you are doing services, the process remains the same. You do not have in the statement 3, you do not have the EGM number option. The moment you will select in the drop down that it is services, you will have a compulsory column of payment, FIRC number, FIRC date and amount, because service of export of service is not completed unless and until, Amita, you received your payments. So that will become an additional burden to you. Rest, everything remains the same in the LUT thing, not in the paid IGST. We are talking about LUT. The option also remains the same, because if you look at it, it very categorically says refund of ITC of goods and services. What could probably change is 1 crore 50 plus 0 ke jagah pe, in your case, it will become 0 plus 1 crore 50. So you don't have anything of goods, you have services and total divide. The formula remains the same. The process under LUT remains the same. Okay. Next is your paid IGST. I think many of you are already doing this. It is considered simple, and I agree it is simpler, it is better, it is easier. Now understand what is this. First and foremost, again, let me reiterate. Payment of IGST here refers to IGST which you pay on your export invoice, not on your purchase. Many times people get confused, because let's assume, Anuj, you have bought goods from the state outside the state you are. So aapne bhi GST, IGST bhara hai. That refund is not we are talking about, because that has become to you in ITC. We are talking about Anuj exports and the invoice and the IGST which you are supposed to charge. So you have to charge to your foreign buyer on your value. So if you are buying at 100 but you are selling it at 200, on 200 का हम बात कर रहे हैं, nothing to do with your purchase. Because many times we have seen shipping bills where they say IGST और वो IGST amount क्या डालेंगे? Purchase का. गलत है. Please don't do that. Okay. So refund of IGST paid on export, meaning on your export bill, you will calculate IGST. You will pay. How you will pay? Obviously, you will declare it. So you will declare it on your shipping bill. You will declare it in your GSTR1. Okay. I'm going to give you this example by this chart which can guide you. This is my chart. Don't go by the legal chart. ये कोई legal confirmation नहीं है, but this is how we understand. So every one of you will prepare an export invoice. You are aware of it. You will prepare your tax invoice. Shipping bill के ऊपर of whatever value you've decided. Again, I will go with your transaction value. So Anuj, your transaction value, let's say in INR terms is 1 lakh rupees. On 1 lakh, 18% अगर GST है तो 18,000 GST आपको भरना है. So that 18,000 should be shown on your shipping bill. I don't know what your purchase cost is. So don't discuss that at all. It has nothing to do with your purchase cost. Okay. Kapil has paid you, Kapil has provided you goods. He's charged you CGST as GST or he's charged you IGST from KG, and does not matter. आपका तो IGST होगा at 1 lakh rupees, 18% GST. Your shipping bill will show that details. Once you file your export over, Leo हो गया, EGM file हो गया. Correct? Your export transaction is confirmed. Your export is over. Obviously, your commercial invoice or your export invoice in dollar does not show your GST portion. Your buyer is only going to give you 1 lakh equivalent dollar. Buyer is not going to give you 1 lakh 18. Buyer is only going to give you 1 lakh. That information, that data goes from IceGate, the custom portal, to GSTN. Now, today is 22nd of June, 23rd of June rather. Right? Anuj, your GST returns will be due on 11th of July. Correct? GSTR1. So GSTR1 में 11th of July को आप table 6A, which is your export sale का detail, उसमें आप select करोगे with payment of GST. You will put all your details. You will put, I'll just show you quickly the GSTR1. This is the table. Invoice number डालोगे, date डालोगे, port code. Everybody understand what is port code? Port code is the abbreviation given at each port. Nhava Sheva INSA 1, Air Cargo Mumbai, Inbound 4, Air Cargo Delhi, INDL 4. These are the port codes. Now, if you see, many times CA would not put this because वो mandatory field नहीं है. Red dot नहीं है. It is not mandatory for filing of return. It is mandatory for filing of refund. अगर आपने जैसे अकाउंट में IFSC कोड नहीं डाला तो पैसे नहीं आते ना. Same way, I want refund, so I am compulsory supposed to put the port code, shipping bill number, and shipping bill date. My invoice value, I will select with payment of tax. Now, this is another which people make mistake. People write their values here in the 0%. Whether it is with payment or without payment, आपका यहाँ पे नहीं आएगा. ये गलत है. If your product is at 18%, in our example, Anuj, your product is 18%, you will put 1 lakh here, automatically 18,000 की liability calculate होके आ जाएगी. Correct? And that's your liability. That's what you're supposed to pay. So you will do that. So आपने GSTR1 file कर दिया. Then we go to GSTR3B, which is going to be filed by 22nd of that month, right? So 22nd ko Anuj will automatically, now so it comes automatically. Anuj, if it comes automatically, great. If it not, you will file it yourself. Right here, 1 lakh 18,000 will be your liability. Correct? Now this is your liability of 3B. Example lete Anuj. You already have an input.
Request to members to just see this very, attentively. This is very important. Whoever wants to shift from manual refund process to online online refund process, please follow this. This is very important. GSTR 313B में B. How to tally it and how to avoid the mistakes in filing IGST refund. IGST refund return file करते वक्त mistake कैसे avoid करना है, तो ये please आप देखिए. Very important this. Sorry.
Now, 18, no worries, Sanjay bhai. Yeah. So 18,000 Anuj is your liability. Now I'm not worried about what is your input credit. It is there in the ledger. Whether 15,000 है या 50,000 है, I have no worries about it. You have to pay 18. Now, whether you pay it via input credit or you have to pay it via cash challan, your problem. The system will tell you. System will tell you, क्या Anuj, you have 8,000 is your input credit, 10,000 रुपया और भरो तो ही आगे return file होगा. What you have to make sure is, which is critical, and again, in fact, now it pops up. Please note, your export transaction has to be recorded here. 3.1B, outward taxable supply, 0 rated. अगर आप यहाँ पे फाइल कर दोगे, यहाँ पे बताओगे, it will become domestic transaction, refund नहीं मिलेगा. That's why you see, because this is export, there cannot be CGST, SGST. You see there is no field. Anuj, whether it is South Africa, USA, Europe, Africa, or Australia, New Zealand, sub IGST आएगा. इसके लिए we only have this one column. So you have filed 18,000. Okay. You have paid 18,000. Assume करते हैं कि आपके पास input credit पड़ा था. तो आपने cash नहीं use किया, आपने credit use किया. अरे credit means you have paid sometimes before at the time of purchase. Ultimately, it's your money. Your money paid to Kapil, converted as input credit, paid now. Somewhere you have paid. Correct? Now what happens? Your GSTR1 is over, GSTR3B is over. Right? Both of these data first gets verified at the GST portal itself. Okay, let me quickly. Yeah. So if you go into the option under services, there's an option called refund and there's an option called track status of invoice shared to IceGate. जैसे आपका GSTR1 और 3B हो जाएगा, wherein Anuj has said in GSTR1 18,000 as his liability, and in 3B he has paid 18,000. ये match हो जाएगा, which you can check at the export ledger also, debit credit. You will get a message here also. Then Anuj, whatever number of export transaction you have done under table 6A, that data will go to customs for verification. अगर आपने GSTR1 में 18 है और 3B में 8,000 डाला, तो डेटा स्टॉप हो जाएगा, nothing will go. So unless this two is matched, no data will go. So the moment you file your return, you can verify your liability. In a very simple words, अगर GSTR1 की liability जितनी है, अगर आपने 3B match नहीं किया, you have not matched it with your 3B, your transaction of refund will not get processed. It will not get moved. It will stop. The entire thing will get paused until next month when you file 3B and make it equal. So once this is filed, so what happens? Let's go back to our chart. So GSTR1 हो गया, 3B हो गया. Let's take this was only one transaction. So Anuj, it will tell you that your one transaction is also gone to the portal for validation. अभी validation क्या validation? अरे यहाँ पे तुमने भरा, but Anuj, was it for the same invoice which you had exported in that month? तो ये दोनों data जो custom से shipping bill का data है और GSTR1 का data है, that will handshake, they will match. कहाँ match होगा? On the IceGate platform. Custom का portal है icegate.gov.in. अगर ये platform पे match होगा, I'll show you how and what it is. Once it gets matched, if it is all okay, it will throw out what is called as a response code. If that response code is perfect, then the local customs, Anuj, you have exported from Mumbai Air Cargo, Mumbai Airport. The Mumbai Airport will scroll the refund in probably a day or two or a week. It will go through a centralized PFMS, Public Financial Management System, which is an account department of the central government, and it will get credited to your bank account automatically. यानी आपको क्या करना है? एक्सपोर्ट करना है, which you are any which way doing. आपको क्या करना है? GSTR1 भरना है, you are any which way doing. आपको 3B भरना है, you are any which way doing. But if you do all this, then automatically rest system will work and refund will come automatically. The good part of this system is it is auto driven. The bad part or the difficult part, it is auto driven. Why I'm saying this is good part that it is system driven. कोई किसी का intervention नहीं है, सब कुछ है. But the problem here is, Anuj, if your invoice number is AK01 in your shipping bill और GSTR1 में आपने AK1 डाला तो match नहीं होगा. Simple. So this is what the problem is. When you talk about automated, आप बोलोगे सर सेम ही हुआ, सेम नहीं हुआ. It is not the same. Kapil, COLOR color is COLOUR color, not year. यहाँ पे exact to exact match होना चाहिए. We have seen so many times. I mean, I was typing on this chat INSA1, the port code. Mr. Dungar Singh, I'm sure n number of times बहुत बार लोगों ने गलती की है. INNSA1 के जगह पे INSSA, 2 S आ गया है. अभी INSA1 चल रहा था, that is the port code for Nhava Sheva, and they assume the CHA or the accountant assumes Bombay में भी INBOM 1 ही होगा. INBOM 1 is Ballard Pier, it's not air cargo. So what happens? The matchmaking is not happening because your export is happening from air cargo, Sahar, where so ये mismatch है. So all of this, how do you verify this? ये दोनों data very very important, whatever you have mentioned. So you can then, once this data goes, you can verify it on the IceGate portal. icegate.gov.in is the customs platform, obviously now usable for so many other things. We can discuss that separately. But for the customs GST platform, अगर आपके पास IceGate का ID नहीं है, then you require certain documents, a self-certified IEC copy, authority letter, an authorized person. Very important is class 3 digital signature. And अभी सबसे important जो हो चुका है, and I'm sure many of you will be struggling on this, in spite of that the company which is manufacturer or company which has created this has said कि ये software हमने बंद कर दिया. Internet Explorer 11. It doesn't work on Google Chrome. It doesn't work on any other browser. It works only on Internet Explorer with a Java setup which is specific to it. Many times we struggle. If any of our FPME members have a challenge, please get in touch with us. We will try and assist you and help you out. We have honestly kept a dedicated system where we are not upgrading that system. हम उसको ऊपर कोई software upgrade नहीं कर रहे हैं because of only to run this old software. And there still are challenges, okay? But we can guide you and assist you in this challenge. If you have an IceGate login ID, fantastic. What happens when you have an IceGate login? You log into this system, and then what you can do? You can check the validation. हमने जो ये देखा था, custom से data and GST से data. This data will get merged here. So it will tell you shipping bill number, shipping bill date, month कौन सा है, invoice क्या है, date क्या है. कभी ये process हुआ, meaning the matchmaking हुआ. And what was the shipping bill? Shipping bill is an electronic shipping bill or manual. अभी तो हम सब electronic shipping bill है. What is critical which you have to, what you have to look at is this response code. ये response code SB000 is very important because Kapil, 0 is hero here. 0 है तो पैसे मिलेंगे, 0 नहीं है तो पैसे नहीं मिलेंगे. So if you look into this, and if you take this, if you're on live system, you will be able to take your mouse here and Anuj, it will tell you 0 का मतलब क्या है, and it will play you this entire list. 000 means successful, यानी कोई problem नहीं है. 000 के अलावा अगर कोई problem है, if it is any other number, 1, 2, 3, like imagine करो Anuj, you had multiple invoices, 10 invoices थे. Last वाला invoice 31st को जो गया है, उसका EGM अभी तक नहीं आया सिस्टम में. Remember, manual में तो you have to take EGM number, you are waiting till to file. System में तो automatically जाएगा. Then you might have an error called SB002, EGM not a file for shipping bill. क्या करना है? कुछ नहीं करना है. CHA को बोलना है भाई तुम EGM file करो. Let the shipping bill file. Automatically system will keep on verifying this SB002 data. जिस दिन वो EGM हो जाएगा, it will become SB000 and you will get your refund. All right. Invoice number invalid, SB001, shipping bill number invalid. Very, very common problem. अगर आपने गलती की है, so you will have a error code there, SB001. Now shipping bill की गलती कहाँ होती है? कपिल, shipping bill तो generate हुआ है from the customs. So वहां पे तो गलती नहीं होगी. गलती कहाँ होगी? You have typed wrong in your GST returns. So what are you supposed to do? Amend it in the next month return. So you'll have to wait. Let the next month come. GSTR1 में amendment का option है, वहां पे जाके आप amendment करो. Once you do an amendment, it will get matched. EGM, as we said, SB002 and similarly SB005, SB006. Yet 2 and 6 both are talking about EGM. One is for the ICD. So like Sandeep bhai, if you're doing an export from ICD Tughlaqabad in Delhi or ICD at Ahmedabad, Sabarmati and Ahmedabad, then ICD ka EGM plus gateway EGM, port EGM, both EGM is compulsory to confirm that the export has happened. SB003 very rare. GSTN number ही गलत हो गया हो. There is a process available to rectify it, but very rare in case if it's a wrong GSTIN. One of the most common mistakes, SB005, invoice number या invoice date गलत. कैसे गलत? In the invoice, I'll tell you what happened. Sandeep bhai would probably know this. हमने ये जुलाई 2017 से ये common यही error आ रहा है. So somebody in the export, I mean, I'm not from FPME, but somebody mentioned in their, I'm going to say the old one. So somebody mentioned in their export transaction, look at the chat. It's put this invoice number as EXP/17/202122. Okay. And Kapil, जब ये उन्होंने GST return file किया ना, now practically it may look the same, but ये कभी भी solve नहीं होगा because this is a mismatch of invoice. Again, you have two choices. एक, you update it in your next month GSTR1 portal, amend it, or now, and this could be a date error also. Now you can amend it by writing it to customs. Customs को एक आप letter दे सकते हो. There is a procedure available. एक interface they have attached where you can approach the custom where your mismatch of documents. आपने शायद एक बार गलती है correction भी कर लिया. Or let's say Anuj, you know the rule for export, I mean rule for invoicing numbering is GST says maximum 16 characters. 16 कैरेक्टर से ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए, पर कपिल हमने गलती कर दी, हमारा एक्सपोर्ट इनवॉइस तो 17 कैरेक्टर का है. अभी क्या करोगे आप? क्योंकि now you cannot amend also GST portal because it will not accept 17 characters. So Janish bhai, you can go to the customs, give them this annexure A, which is nothing but matchmaking. Okay, by my GST returns, this is my invoice number. My shipping bill, this is my invoice number. Both are same. In fact, it's a matchmaking. There's a problem, there's an error, there's a typo mistake. This is my GSTR1 return. This is my GSTR3B return. I have filed everything. The customs will manually verify it. Earlier, this was for a specific period. Now they have kept it open, but they are going to charge you 1,000 rupees as the fee for rendering this service. And when customs verified, they will accept it and then they will edit that transaction, and that SB001 error will change to SB000. Unless that happens, your refund will not get done. All right. Amita, let me quickly go back to one slide for your reference. Unfortunately, unfortunately, this paid IGST auto refund is only available for goods and not for services. Okay. So Amita, why? Because obviously there is no IceGate, there is no matchmaking, there is no auto data. So if you are exporting services on paid basis, you have to apply it manually at this platform. Again, just like it was here, a manual application with GST officers have to be done, and this is the process. So since this is paid, maybe same hai, you have to pay and apply for refund. LUT maybe same hai, you don't apply but apply for refund. So for services, I would recommend to always go for LUT and no requirement or no logic to go for paid IGST unless there is some specific requirement. So no IceGate, nothing, no response code, nothing is available. We need to apply IceGate. Please tell once again the procedure. Okay. KGN, you need to apply IceGate. You require certain set of documents. Explaining at this point will become confusing. I will share this presentation. There's a list of documents, an IC copy, an authority letter, depending upon whether you're a partner, proprietor. Partner hai to all partners should sign. If it is director, all directors should sign or have a board resolution. Copy of, let's say KGN, it's in your name, then your Aadhaar card. You will select the port which you want. You will require your individual class 3 signature and there are certain Java settings and Internet Explorer 11 required to apply for login. You just have to select that login option, go into the IceGate. So if you go into the IceGate, let me go here. This is the option. You don't have a login ID password. You say sign up now. When you click on sign up now, you will come to this page, create an ID, email, check availability, and then just follow steps one after the other. Lastly, you with class 3 signature, you will submit it, and it will, the customs will take 24 to 48 hours. As we speak today, they are taking more than even 4 days, 5 days, 6 days to reply or approve your IceGate login. Once your IceGate login is approved, you can then go in and check your data on the system. All right. Okay. Now, automatic ICs, we have already discussed paid IGST. One point which I want to go before I go into the next one is introduction of a rule 96B. So Jainesh bhai, we categorically I started and I said export means export of goods from one, from place of India to an outside, to place outside India. Correct? I said there is no requirement of money or anything, and it is actually that. And just so that you do bring money and maybe you don't, not do anything wrong, Rule 96B has been introduced where it says that if you apply for refund, either under paid IGST or LUT, you are responsible to bring in the money, because if you don't bring any money, then government is, the GST is liable, or it is possible to recover the ITC refund or the IGST refund for export payments not received. Are you getting it? So if you don't get the money in the stipulated time, for records, the time allowed within which you should bring in your foreign exchange realization as per FEMA regulation is 9 months, unless you extend it by request to the bank. So if 9 months mein Anuj, you have not got the money, not got the money from the buyer, but aapka wo automated system mein refund to aa gaya, correct? It is technically not export. So Anuj, the GST authority will ask you to pay back that refund with interest. So mind you that you have to go back and give the refund. All right. Now, since we are merchant exporters, most of us, I know there could be some questions, but I just want to cover this. I think somebody did ask this also. So I'm sure many of you, yeah, Atulji, that's exactly I'm taking. So last point before we open it for Q&A. And I'm sure if you have understood the other two, then this is understanding. This is very simple. Okay. So if you go back pre-GST, and I'm sure many of you are in the industry for long, Kamlesh bhai and everyone who is, veteran in the industry, they know that when you were purchasing in pre-GST era, you were giving something called as H form and C form and CT1 and other things where excise nahi charge hota tha, VAT nahi charge hota tha. So what was happening? What was the advantage? Cash flow. See, because today, if Jainesh bhai has to apply for LUT refund, let me give you a calculation, Jainesh bhai. If you're buying goods worth 1 crore from Kapil, at 18%, 18 lakh रुपया आपका पहले अटक गया. आपने आज ये महीने में अप्लाई बाय किया है, your returns will be filed in the next month. And after that, you will get refund, which will take anything from probably 15 days to maybe even 45 days at the basic. And if you're doing monthly, तो आपका 18 lakh रुपया is getting stuck. And imagine करो, आपका purchase was 1 crore, and I'm sure a reasonable profit of 10% is good enough. तो आप बनाने वाले हो, you are going to earn only 10 lakhs, but your 18 lakhs is blocked. And your export buyer has given you, or you have given export buyer a credit of 90 days. तो और problem है. तो ये सारे में, if you do this cycle again and again, you are probably investing so much money that it is very difficult for a merchant exporter to survive. So this was a provision already existing in the pre-GST era where Jainesh bhai was giving what is called as H form or a C form, whereby VAT was not charged in case of VAT. If it was excise, he was supposed to give what is called as CT1, जिससे manufacturer excise charge ही नहीं करता. Okay. Now, again, the same concept, and Janish bhai, you'll have to, and I want everybody to understand this categorically clear. You all are you all have to be a merchant exporter, and Amita ji, this is only for goods, not for service. So you cannot enjoy the benefit. This is only and only for goods. Now understand what is it. First and foremost, it says that if a registered supplier is supplying goods to a registered recipient, who is the registered recipient? Let's take an example, Kapil and Jainesh Bhai. Kapil is the local manufacturer, Jainesh Bhai is the exporter. So Kapil is also registered, Jainesh Patel is also registered. Mr. Jainesh Patel is a merchant exporter, he's a registered exporter. Kapil is a registered supplier, and Jainesh Patel says, Kapil, I want this for export. Then benefit is to Mr. Jainesh Patel, but iske baad ki puri story technically applies to Kapil, the supplier. Okay. Then Mr. Kapil, who is the supplier, registered supplier, can waive off or not charge GST in excess of 0.1%, meaning आप 0.1 तक चार्ज करो, उसके ऊपर चार्ज नहीं करो. क्यों? Because the person who has come to you telling that Mr. Kapil Jindal, I want this product for export. Kapil, anybody will come and tell you ना मेरे को export के लिए चाहिए, फिर जाके बाजू में जाके बेच देगा. Correct? So what do? Well, you have 6 conditions to follow. The conditions in the notifications are in a different order. I have rearranged it for reference. मैंने number same रखा है बाजू में. First and foremost, Kapil, Mr. Jainesh Patel has to offer you one purchase order saying, Mr. Kapil Jindal, I want this product for the purpose of export and you will supply me at 0.1%. The copy of that order, that purchase order, should be submitted to your GST jurisdiction officer. Okay. So that's the initiation. That's the first instance. What it's saying that Mr. Patel, he wants goods for export. Second, Mr. Jainesh Patel, that is the recipient, that is a merchant exporter, should be registered with any export promotion council or commodity board recognized by Department of Commerce, which means he should be member of FIO, Pharmaxil, or any other organization. Now, I will keep this between you and Mr. Patel, that if you ask Mr. Patel, are you member? He says yes and you trust him. Fair enough. या तो आप बोलो सर मुझे कॉपी दो, आपकी मर्जी, चॉइस आपके ऊपर है, बट वो रजिस्टर्ड होने चाहिए. There is no mandatory कि Mr. Patel, you have to give me a proof. वो proof का verification अगर department करेगा और नहीं हुआ तो it will be futile. It is up to you. Third, Mr. Kapil Jindal, which is a supplier, which is a manufacturer, will supply Mr. Jainesh Patel, the merchant exporter, on a tax invoice. Fourth, Jainesh Bhai, normally you export within 90 days under LUT, correct? But when you buy goods from Mr. Kapil Jindal, you have to export within 90 days of his invoice date. Not only your date, from his invoice date. So now you have Kapil's invoice dated 1st of June, then you have 90 days from 1st of June, not from your export date, not from your invoice date. So it is 90 days from supplier's invoice date. The goods can go only at 2 places. Kapil, you can only send goods either to the port or to a registered warehouse. And there's a clarification. What is the meaning of registered warehouse? Mr. Jainesh Patel has addresses mentioned in his GST certificate. Any of that premises is called as registered warehouse. So if let's assume Jainesh Bhai has a registered warehouse, वहां पे आप बेच सकते हो. But imagine, just as a thought, Kapil, you are told by Mr. Patel that मेरे friend का गोडाउन है, आप वहां पे माल बेच दो. 0.1 वाले में नहीं कर सकते आप. You can't sell there. You can sell it to the port, CFS, or to address on the Mr. Patel's GST certificate. उनके पास warehouse है, उनके पास गोडाउन है, उनके पास factory है, उनके पास कोई भी है वहां पे. And last but not least, Mr. Jainesh Patel, you have to mention the GST IN, the tax invoice number of your supplier, that is Mr. Kapil Jindal, on your shipping bill. So you will mention the GSTIN number, and obviously with that case it becomes even the name and the tax invoice number of the purchase which you have taken at point 1 in your shipping bill. Copy of this shipping bill has to be provided to the supplier and to the jurisdiction, GST jurisdiction. So if you look at it, Kapil, you will have to submit one document which is the purchase order. टैक्स इनवॉइस तो आपके सिस्टम से जाएगा तो ऑटोमेटिकली डिपार्टमेंट को मालूम पड़ गया, एंड एक्चुअली एक्सपोर्ट हुआ है उसका प्रूफ व्हिच इज शिपिंग बिल व्हिच विल हैव योर GSTIN नंबर एंड योर टैक्स इनवॉइस नंबर एज द क्रॉस वेरिफिकेशन will also be submitted. Mind you, this is not compulsory for Kapil, and Kapil, just for your reference, if you do not export, I mean, if he fails to export within 90 days, or if he doesn't do, then the liability of that 17.99 is on the supplier because aapka sale tha. So though the benefit indirectly is to the merchant exporter, you are somewhere involved. So you have to take care of that. Janish bhai, you are eligible to take the input credit of that point 1. अगर point 1 में भी आप purchase कर रहे हो तो उसकी जो credit है वो आप ले सकते हो. Very important, now that you're buying goods at point 1, purchase is not coming at full rate of GST. We call it at concessional rate. Janish Patel ji, you are compulsory supposed to export under LUT without payment of tax. You cannot go for the second option of IGST. So your export has to be coming under point 1, which is almost zero. Export also going almost zero. कोई tax नहीं रहेगा. And if you want that point 1 over a period of time, point 1 becomes a substantial amount, you can apply for refund of LUT as we have just already discussed. All right. So that's point 1 for you. And I think that's all what I have. Thank you so very much. I will take questions. I have a couple of them which is pending. And Sandeep, if people can raise hands, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Meher bhai, for doing this wonderful insight and coming back on this. I mean, right from the start of GST till date, whatever progress it has been happened under the GST. I mean, it was really nice to understand everything. Now, few quick questions.
We'll take quickly questions which are there online. Guys, I will ask you not to put anything on the chat now because otherwise we will miss on it, and then we'll ask you to raise questions. So, Amita, for services, I will send it separately to you. What are the documents required? Unfortunately, assuming that most of us were goods, but typically I'll tell you what. In services, it's very simple. You do not have shipping bill or any tangible documents. Services, the critical is your invoice and your payment. That's it. Because service of export of service is only completed when the payment is received. So in your case, probably, Amita, you will have to wait. If your payment is advanced, excellent.
Let her connect you separately on this services issue, because most of these our members are merchant exporters. There is one only few questions. Let us make one pointers. You can see. I can tell you that you can make some highlighted points of this, and then you can circulate in our bulletin at least. What members want to know majorly is what is the best option, either LUT or IGST online. So
okay, now let me tell you, let me give you this. This has been a question which is everybody asking. Okay, whether LUT is better or paid is better. Now, first and foremost, as I said, if you have some domestic business, then I think LUT is a better option. You have to see how much is the percentage of it. If you do not have, both is okay. I would prefer paid IGST because it is automatic, and the reason why I would prefer paid IGST for one jolly good reason is, imagine, Anuj, you have 10 shipments in a month. A couple, you have got 50 shipments in a month. You do that matchmaking, everything happens automatically. 50 hai, obviously you're doing entry manually. There could be a situation where do EGM nahi aaya. Maybe one of the typo error has happened. Out of 53 had a problem, 47 refund will get processed. Each shipping bill is your application. In LUT, if imagine one of your invoice of the purchases is not showing on 2A and आपने गलती से डाल दिया है, the entire refund will get stuck. Why? Because the formula has to change, because the calculation has to change. So the entire process will be, the refund will be rejected. It will get credited back to your account. Again, you will have to apply back again. So back and forth is made. Second, it is automatic. It is less cumbersome. If you are like most of us is an MSME exporter, if you have limited invoices, if you have limited purchases, then you have a choice that you may want that on 10th of every month where you are filing your GSTR1, the moment on 12th or 13th when you see your 2A and you have seen your 2A mein everything is correct, then maybe on 14th or 15th also you can file your 3B and immediately get your refund started process. You don't have to wait till 22nd. Now, one irony here again, now with 2B and 2A being automatic, if your supplier are also MSME and if they are quarter filers, तो आपको input credit quarterly मिलेगी. Are you getting it? Then and last but not least, if you have a product where you are doing heavy profit margins, your cost versus your sale is high, then in paid IGST, utna आपको और डालना पड़ेगा. The differential you will have to pay with your pocket. If it is average, if it is standard 10, 15, 25% तक है आपका, I think that is okay. But अगर आपका कोई product है जहाँ पे substantial profit margin है, and because of that your value increases, your purchase is at 100 and maybe your export is at 150 or 200, तो 200 रुपए यानी जो 100 रुपए का डिफरेंस है उसका पैसा तो आपको जेब से डालना पड़ेगा additionally. So what you have to do is, there is no standard recipe. You will have to see there's a way also where people work out. What many of us do is, or many of exporters do is, what they will do is they'll plan. They will say, okay, I have this volume problem ना अनुज, मेरे पास ये price का problem है, तो मैं first month LUT करता हूँ, I accumulate ITC. Second month I another do LUT, I get accumulated ITC. तो मेरा double ITC हो गया मेरे पास. Third month I will go for paid. तो वो महीने की ITC plus 2 ITC, I have enough ITC to pay all my liabilities and automatically get the refund. So every third month I can apply for refund. One challenge which has been recently done, and I'm sure Sandeep Bhai and a lot of FPME members have got this. I'm not scaring you, but ये भी fact है. When you do IGST by system, and we don't have any method or reasoning of why and who will get catch in it, but there is a possibility, and this has happened mostly for paid IGST guys, but as and when it happens, you will have to do it. But that is that if you do regularly paid IGST, one challenge which has come very regularly is the DGRM system, that is a risk management system of GST, sometimes catches the exporter's database and marks you as risky exporter. अब ये risky exporter का tag होने से क्या होता है? The moment Anuj you are a risky exporter, your IGST refund, which is auto refund, your drawback will get stopped. It will get paused. आपका it is not going to become zero. आपको मिलना बंद हो जाएगा. There is a procedure to be followed. There is a way and method where you'll have to give your return copies, documentation, verification. Unfortunately, that timeline as per paper is about 1 month or 2 months. I am at the moment having cases where we have 1.5 years has gone and we are still struggling. But if today we are 35 of us, and if probably all of you are doing IGST, I'm sure only 5 would have got suffered, not 30. Does not mean that we should not do it. But I'm also telling you this is an option. You might have to try and look at it, that what suits best for your organization, what is your volume, what is your value, how much refund it is coming. Do you have or do you intend to do some domestic sales? Then it will automatically get the domestic taxable sales, not the one which is under nil rated. So based on that, you will have to identify which is better. And if you have a principle of having documents and everything correctly done, I don't see a reason. Even LUT going, I have seen so many exporters, especially even in the exporters which have 28% GST, not in the pharma, but engineering and other sector, where they are going comfortably with LUT because 28% on value addition भी बहुत expensive हो जाता है. You know, even if it is a normal, 28% जेब से डालना becomes sometimes very expensive. So LUT is pretty okay. Sandeep bhai, a common problem which is there when you go to departments, any department, any department it is there. I think if you are honest enough and if you have your documents and details in place, if you start making a system and if you put your foot down saying nothing doing, I have my refund and this is what it is, it may happen once, twice that it will get delayed or deferred and returned. But once the department understands that nothing, no hanky-panky business is going to happen from this company, I don't think so they will have a problem. But at the same time, you should be prepared to be on the side where if you make one mistake, वो पकड़ लेंगे और फिर उसको आपको उतना refund नहीं देंगे. So they will also go with then everything will be as per rule book. So then you cannot happen कि अच्छा मेरी गलती है तो आप चला लो, but आपकी I will not, compromise. Then you have to be prepared for everything. And I've seen so many people who are able to do it. It takes a time, maybe a 2 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 or 2 refund to set it out, but then nothing doing. And it is very simple. आप मेरे को लिखित में दे दो, आप reject करना है, आप reject करो. I will go ahead. I will file appeal. I will do whatever it is legally allowed.
But then, we are MSME and we don't have that time. So my suggestion is to, Mirbhai, you make one write-up. We will have this on online recording also, and the presentation also you are going to share. But in that presentation, I will request you to make one write-up in the what is the best scenario without going for manual applying of refund. Like whatever you give example, take LUT, 2 months you accumulate your ITC, and then in 3rd month you pay online.
Sandeep bhai, my only challenge is I'll tell you what, I understand what you're saying and I'm completely with you, Sandeep bhai. But imagine tomorrow if Kamlesh bhai or anybody, Janish bhai, Rohit or Kapil, after 3 months of doing paid IGST, gets tagged as risky exporter, he has no choice but to do LUT.
No, but then see, I tell you, Mir bhai, as you rightly said, out of 35 years, only 3, not more than 3 have been on the risky side. There are certain issues where people have been marked as risky, right? So my point is, if you are clear, and I'm doing online IGST paid version for last 5 years, so I'm mixing and matching. Where I'm facing cash flow issues, I'm opting for LUT, I'm accumulating that, and then I am going for IGST. So my request to you is, please make this note and give as an example in this. And then first best option is IGST online refund. Then second one is mix and match. And if not possible, where 28% is there, then only you go for manual application. If this point, if that slide is added in your presentation, and one write-up of this, best way of getting quick online, quick IGST refund will publish in bulletin, so that member have some guidance into it.
Not say it's quick online refund, we will say it how correctly you can file your refund, because quick online refund seems to be a slight wrong answer, because people will think मैं कुछ आपको अलग बता रहा हूँ जिससे आपको फटाफट refund मिले. फटाफट तो नहीं.
I may be not clear in communicating that with you, but then you can understand. Right?
I understand your meanings.
So that one write up for our next bulletin, and adding this in one slide, and you can share the slide so that we can circulate to our members. I think we have crossed much of time. It's been more than 2 hours. Thank you everyone for participating and responding with this. If any queries, Mihir is always available for you. You can directly write to him, or with advisory@fpmindia.com. You can send a mail. We are always available with you to all our members. Thank you, Mihir. Thank you, everyone. And it was a nice session here. We will definitely share this recording on our YouTube channel of FPME also. One question is there. We can answer it and then we can go ahead, because we are running out of time.
Okay. Is it online in the chat? 1 second. I see
Anuj Kaushal. Yeah, Anuj Kaushal, you can ask the question, the last question. You can unmute and ask the question.
Yes, Anuj.
Hi, Mihir. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I had just one question. Maybe I skipped that point. When you mentioned the formula for getting the refund for ITC, there was a capping on the domestic supply. So is that applicable on certain points, or that is 100% applicable?
No, so the point is this. Now, the capping at 1.5 times of your domestic supply value, it is part of the rule now. It is part of the formula. Okay. The challenge is it says 1.5% of the domestic value of what you supply or what a similar supplier. Now the question is, let's say Anuj says, I don't do any domestic. Compare kya karoge? And comparing Anuj's supply value to Sandeep ji's or Jainesh bhai's value is completely wrong. So what is happening in practice? If you are a domestic as well as an exporter, then your values will be considered 1.5. But if Jainesh bhai is only into exports and he doesn't have any domestic, then there is a practical view that sometimes they will say some common value, which you can argue. And sometimes they will say, because you don't have any domestic value, we'll take your value. So this is the problem. Yes, Jainesh bhai.
Just for the information of all the members, as you said that risky exporters matter. Actually, just to share to everyone, risky exporters, if you are getting classified as a risky exporter, then it is actually a risky process to pass through, because it will take unimaginable time. Once you go for risky exporters SOP clarification, they will try and find many queries and it will stretch like anything. So once you are classified in risky exporters, your GST refund will suspend, drawback will suspend, everything will get suspended. So it is not to be taken lightly. I would tell all members
that we need to educate our members to avoid certain mistakes to be not, qualified as a risky.
That is true, but Sandeep bhai, it is something like that. See, we follow everything very minutely, but even if one of our suppliers or any other XYZ connected manufacturers has a red flag in their GST system, you automatically come into that risky export.
So vendor management is very important in that.
Yeah, so that now many people have come across these risky exporters from Ahmedabad. So our members also have faced it, and it's a very tough process. I personally have gone through it. So just sharing for the information of all members.
Yeah. All right, Sandeep bhai, I think we are good.
Yeah, we're done.
Jainesh bhai, I agree, but so the point is again taken. Unfortunately, there is no criteria set of who will fall under risky and when. So
it is system based. It is system based. So you need
we have to
be very alert whenever we deal with any vendor. We need to check whether they are filing regular returns or not.
It is a system based, plus it is not in the hands of local GST department, because it is straightway control from DGRM Delhi.
Correct.
So this local GST department doesn't have any say in that. So they have to just follow process. And as far as it is done by central GST only department, not by state GST.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you everyone. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.